If you have a teenager going off to university this year, or you know someone who does, you need to watch this. Hi, my name's Christine L. Conroy. Welcome to Happy Stuff and Fluff, a channel for women over 50 who are getting happy and growing younger. And if this is your first visit, you are most welcome. Please consider subscribing and join us. And remember to hit the little notification bell so that you'll be notified each time a video comes out. They come out at least once a week, and we offer suggestions and strategies on how to increase your happiness and build resilience. So we'd love to have you with us. So do you have a teenager going off to university this year, or you know someone who does? If you do, give me a thumbs up so I know it's about, I think the thumbs up thing's about there. That would be great. Well, as a mother of 3, 2 boys and a girl who all went through the university system, and as a university professor or lecturer for some 8 years to undergraduate students, I know a little bit about this age group. And first of all, the first myth to bust is that they are all lazy and stay in bed all day and play computer games all night. That's the first one. I found them to be bright and funny, hilariously funny, creative, ambitious and optimistic. Caveat here, given the right conditions. That's the first myth. The other myth is that they are adults at 18. No, they're not. They're not adult at 18. What they are is on the cusp of adulthood, with kind of one foot in the teenage immaturity camp and the other one in the mature adult camp. Maturity develops over the 3 years that they're there, of course, but going in at 18, they are fledgling. Now, of course, there are exceptions to that, and as a parent at the moment you may only be experiencing the stay in bed all day and play computer games all night, but trust me, there is more to your about to be an undergrad teenager than that. Just keep the faith. So what you have to do is try to consider them as adult, but remember that they still have all the insecurities of youth and will often slip back into what I call comfort blanket behaviour. But hey, I'm 62 and I quite often slip back into comfort blanket behaviour too. Give me a yes in the comments if you're the same, especially at the moment. So I think we can allow them that. I mean, under normal circumstances, you know, your child would be going to university in September, maybe October, but September, let's say. And they would be going through a whole gamut of emotions, from excitement to nervousness, apprehension, maybe even fear. You know, they could be frightened of it because it's uncertain, isn't it? They don't know how it's going to pan out. It's a whole new world for them, and that's under normal circumstances. And teenagers are emotional and sensitive anyway, but all of their emotions, no doubt at the moment, will be heightened and quite a few more thrown into the mix. So I think we need to give them a little bit extra, be gentle and a little bit more TLC, I think. And this conversation has come about because I was having a chat with a client who is very concerned about her son, who's gone into catastrophising mode about the whole thing. He was due to take his A-levels and he needed a certain grade in order to get into the university he wants to get into. And he was dreading his A-levels, but then they were taken away from him and they're not doing their A-levels, and that's thrown him into this kind of catastrophising mode because he wanted to know, despite the fact that he was not looking forward to his A-levels, he wanted to know that he was capable of getting these grades and going to this university for himself. And now, of course, that's not going to happen. And so he's gone into catastrophising, and I'm pretty sure quite a few teenagers will be will be behaving in the same way. Or possibly they could be adopting the victim mentality response, why has this happened to me? Why does it always happen to me? And what's the point? We're always going to be known as coronavirus students or COVID-19 students, etc., etc. They could be thinking about all of those things, and to an extent, it's understandable that they feel like that. And as I was saying last week, was it, that it's okay not to feel okay? I'll leave a link here. It's the same for the teenagers, the way they're feeling at the moment. It's okay to feel like that, but only in the short term. And what can you do about it? How can you help them? Well, before I say anything, you know your teenager better than me, of course. You know how best to approach them. So whatever I'm going to say next, perhaps a variation of it, or, it might inspire you to think along this similar lines and give you ideas of how you can help your teenager through this. But as always, timing is key. I would say don't even attempt a rational discussion with them if you can see that they've gone off on a kind of emotional rant, or that you can see very definitely that their emotions are ruling the roost at the moment. Then to try to have a rational conversation with them is a waste of your time, no matter how logical you might think it sounds. It's just going to go like that. They're not listening when they're in that state. So wait for calmer waters before you try to address the situation. And then I would say ask them what their fears are, what their worst fears are even, and listen to them. Listen to them. Don't interrupt while they speak. Just listen to what they have to say, and then acknowledge their fears. Try not to dismiss them, and by that I mean don't be tempted to say, oh, don't be silly, that's not going to happen, everything will be fine, you've no need to worry about that, don't be silly. All I would say is to you is think about yourself when you're in an anxious state or worried about something, and somebody says to you, oh, don't be silly, don't worry. I think those two words, don't worry, have to be the most redundant words in the English language. They're just words thrown at you, really, when you're in a worried state. So don't say it to your teenager is what I'm saying. What you need to try to do is to express an understanding of how they must be feeling. Accept that they are feeling uncertain. Accept that they are feeling apprehensive or frightened or confused. Give them that acknowledgement. But then you have to, with them, accept and acknowledge the situation as it is right now, not in the future, as it is here and now. These are the facts. This is where we are. And incidentally, nip the victim if they have gone into this, why do these things happen to me? You've got to nip that mentality in the bud. Worldwide there are some 1.2 billion learners struggling with this same issue. 1.2 billion. So your teenager is not alone, and it is not personal to them. And the thing about this is, when they do go to university, be that in September or January, when they do go, everybody in their year will be in the same boat. It isn't as though they're the only one going to be disadvantaged in this way. If indeed it is a disadvantage, it may not be, but everybody there will be in the same boat, which you need to make clear to your teenager. So getting back to the fact then that we need to accept and acknowledge, look, this is the situation, this is where we are. And then listen to this quotation by Oliver Wendell Holmes, which I think is brilliant for what we're talking about. He says, the great thing in this world is not so much where you stand as in what direction you are moving. So this is what's happened. This is where we are. This is where we stand. What you do next counts. It's what you do next that counts. What got you here doesn't matter. It's what you do next that counts. So this happened. this happened. How your child performs at university is what will count. What got them there, why or how they got there, is irrelevant. It's what they do when they are there that's important, and they are in control of that. Your child, the student, is in control of that. See, a lot of teenagers feel, rightly or wrongly, they feel that they don't have an awful lot of control in their lives. They do what their parents want them to do, then they go to university, they do what they want them to do, and so on and so forth. And they have this feeling of lack of control. Well, they have more control than they think they do. And this is the first thing. It's what your student does when they're at university that counts. This thing about always being known as the COVID-19 students who got into university by defraud, you know what I mean? Doesn't matter how they got there if they perform when they get there. Okay, so that's the thing. In that sense, the great thing in this world is not so much where you stand as in what direction you are moving fits that perfectly. And the one thing to address catastrophising or worry of any kind in anybody is to take action. Is because it's that kind of feeling of lack of control and not being able to do anything that causes a lot of this anxiousness and worry. Taking action helps you to get over that. So the key here then is to prepare as much as possible. And even small actions that seem small in the face of things, it's the taking control that's important, the actual doing of something that's important. So I would suggest that you create an action plan together with your child. I'm calling them child, not young adult. I'm calling them child because they are your child. Yeah, you know what I mean by that. But they need to put some input in here and they need to have some responsibility. So, for example, if you were to Google COVID-19 and students or COVID-19 undergrads or whatever and university, there are tons and tons of responses and websites and articles about this very thing, or at least about what's going to happen when they get to university, how universities are preparing themselves and so on, that might ease their mind and also might ease yours. So that's something they can do. They can do that kind of research. Now, many universities in the UK are saying that they are not going to be taking students in until January, and the lectures are going to go online for the first term. So they'll start their courses in September, but the first term will take place online, and then they're hoping to be taking students in the flesh, as it were, in January. Now, there's pluses and minuses to this way of learning online. Now, obviously, it's not ideal, but going back to this is where we're at. This is what it is. This is what we have to do. That is what you have to accept. Pluses and minuses, because it's not easy studying online, but what it will do, it will ease them into university learning whilst they're in the safe environment and comfort of their own environment at home. So all the things they're unsure about learning and meeting people, there will be Facebook groups where they'll be able to meet through Facebook the people in their year or in their study groups. They'll meet them online when they start. They'll be able to learn library systems and research systems and all of those things they'll be able to learn online before they actually go. They'll get a good idea of their subject matter and how that's going to pan out before they actually go in January, so that when they do go to university in January, they'll feel far more confident going then because they have all this information and some contacts than they would if they were going in September completely green. Can you see that's a point that needs to be made to them? This is an upside of this way of learning. But it is difficult to sit down and focus and motivate yourself to do online learning. So there's things you can do about that. Maybe between now and then you could suggest to your child that they take an online course, a mini online course. Now, if you're thinking, oh, not a chance of getting my child out of bed to do an online course when they don't have to do one, so let's be sneaky about this. Get them to do an online course that has something to do with a hobby that they have, that's nothing to do with their course at all, unless they want to do that, to give themselves a little bit of background maybe. But if not, have them do an online course to do with one of their hobbies. What are they interested in? Is there an online course? And there will be, because there's online courses on everything, that they can do as part of their hobby that you know they're going to enjoy, because that will get them out of bed, sitting at the computer, waiting to learn something that they know they're going to enjoy, focusing for 30 minutes online, and that will get them into that kind of mode. Now, the universities have a role to play in this too, remember. This is a list of questions that from University World News, that they're saying universities should be asking themselves this question. I'm saying that as a parent, these are questions you could be asking. No, you would ask this question anyway. Why should an applicant enrol in your university? It's a basic question. But related to COVID-19, what will your university look like after COVID-19 recedes? This is important to know. And even more important to know, what is the vision for your future students? How is that vision different from what it is today? These are questions that your university, the chosen university, needs to be able to answer fully for you to put your mind at rest. Now, last but not least, whatever you ask your child to do, your teenager to do, there has to be a big enough why for them to do it. So have that ready if you're going to suggest these things to them. When they ask the question, why should I bother doing that? Have the answer. You know, what's in it for them? What's in it for them is that they will be able to get the best possible outcome of this for themselves. So instead of catastrophising about the world's coming to an end and it's all going to be awful and I'm not going to be able to study properly and I'm going to be known as a second-rate student, all of those things that they might be catastrophising about, you now have answers for. This is what we can do so that they don't feel like that, and so that they won't be like that, and so that they can go to university either in September or in January and get the absolute best out of their university degree. Because now more than ever, what they get out of their degree will depend largely on what they put in, and they are in control of that. Okay, I hope that's been helpful for you, because action and preparation are absolute key to easing their worries, but also to easing your worries and doubts. So now you see, now you can get back to worrying just about your normal, usual, average empty nest syndrome. And I can help with that too. I already have some videos out there to help you with that, and there's a new one on the way. Okay, so like I say, I hope that was helpful to you, and let me know how you get along, and I'll see you next time. And until then, remember that on the Happy Stuff and Fluff, we're getting happy and growing younger. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.